I'm Landon Derentz. I'm the Senior Director of the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center, and we're here in Dubai at the Global Decarbonization Accelerator Pavilion of the Energy Transition Hub at COP28, looking at the world that we have, the landscape of the energy system, and really how it's transforming in the context of the climate challenge. To do that, bringing together world leaders, executives, thought leaders, to really drive at what actions are taking place and where can we keep making progress. Really excited to have that conversation now with Toby Rice, who's the CEO of EQT. Toby, great to see you here.
Hey, happy to be here, Landon.
You know, we met the first time in Sharm el-Sheikh, COP27. It was my first COP, and I believe it might have been yours as well. What have you seen in the context of this climate conversation in 1 year, and why is EQT a part of this dialogue?
Yeah, in just a year, I think you just look at where the world's at today, and guess what? We still struggle with all of the problems we struggled with last year. We've got rampant inflation pressuring the cost of living. Global emissions are still skyrocketing, and energy security is still shrinking. So clearly the approach towards energy we've not figured out an approach that works. But the good news is what we're excited about with this COP is you're seeing a presence from the players that produce 80% of the world's energy are now here participating at COP. We're talking about the fossil fuel producers, energy producers like America's largest natural gas producer, EQT, is here at COP. We've got some real, practical, proven, impactful plans that will bend the curve on emissions and get us back on track. Now, the question is, can we change the narrative to only solar, only wind, and move back to an all-of-the-above approach towards energy? That's where Unleash US LNG sits. That's where our plans to decarbonize natural gas and transform it into a zero-carbon electricity solution exists. But Landon, being in an all-of-the-above approach towards the world is not good enough. Okay. So we need to be getting to a place, if we want to meet the world's ambitions on the timescale that they need, if we want to pull these 3 billion people out of energy poverty, we want to safeguard the 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, cannot afford an energy crisis, we need to move from an all-of-the-above approach towards energy to a best-of-the-above approach on energy. And we're really excited about what we're hearing when people are talking about energy. It's not just about the clean aspects, it's about affordability, it's about reliability. We think these are the three key metrics when we're considering the energy that we put into this world and what the best energy looks like. And we think natural gas is going to be the energy choice of the future.
Let's dig in a little bit about the motivation for you to be here and be a part of this conversation. You know, EQT, US's biggest natural gas provider, but you are in Appalachia. So it's, really interesting that you're also having a global reach and bringing this narrative to a broader community. You also chose to sign up for the Oil and Gas Decarbonization Charter, a signature a deliverable of this COP. What is bringing this scope and the motivation for you to be engaged both in Egypt and now in Dubai, and presumably in the future where this conversation continues?
Yeah, we've got to be a part of the conversation, because when you're talking about climate, you're talking about energy, and that's our business. So we need to be here and hear what people are talking about, because we've got some really amazing plans to offer the world that are going to help lower global emissions and provide an unprecedented amount of energy security to the world. But people have concerns. And so we need to address these environmental concerns about how we operate. So the Oil and Gas Decarbonization Alliance that we joined into, along with 40% of the world's energy producers, signed up to make bold pledges on what they're going to do to reduce the emissions associated with making the production. So being net zero by 2050, EQT is going to be net zero by 2025. That's less than 24 months, okay? Being near methane emissions by 2030. EQT today already operates at the methane intensity that's 10 times lower than the EPA standards. So we're making so much tremendous progress, but doing it is one thing. We also need to communicate it. So coming to these type of events and letting people know that their concerns over methane emissions are well-founded, but our performance as it relates and our commitments to address this is incredibly important. And the reason it matters is this: we cannot let the emissions associated with making our products stop us from producing this product, because the emissions reduction benefits of using natural gas are so great. And at EQT, just for perspective, the emissions associated with making our product is over 350,000 tons. That's what it costs for us to run our rigs, run our frac crews, take care of the wells. Some people say, and that includes methane emissions. And some people say, that's too much, we need to shut that down. Well, think about this. That carbon footprint from those operations produce an amount of natural gas. When put on the world stage to replace foreign coal, will have an emissions reduction benefit of over 150 million tons. So a 350,000 ton cost for 150 million ton benefit. These are the type of deals that we can offer. Greatest deal in climate. And so if we need to put our money where our mouth is, we're being net zero by 2025. So if we still have emissions, we're paying for it. To take the conversation off of the emissions, we're making our product and focus it on the emission reduction benefits. It's what we need to do.
You know, you're alluding to this, and just a final question, because I really want to push you here at COP28. It is one thing to be Scope 1, 2, 2025, which obviously is really beating the scale in terms of where people are often on mid-century. But ultimately, we need to be thinking Scope 3. We need to be thinking about the whole ecosystem of emissions. What does that mean to you? And when you hear the conversations around Scope 3 in the context of the COP, what's your response?
So the conversation about Scope 3 is really about bringing a more holistic view on the emissions associated with producing and consuming fossil fuels. But let's stick with that holistic view. Scope 3 might be a little bit messy because my Scope 1, my Scope 2 will be somebody else's Scope 3. It'd be really hard for us to assess what is the actual carbon footprint of the planet. Let's go even greater to a Scope 4. And the Scope 4 is what are the emissions associated abated when people use your product. So at EQT, a Scope 3 emissions for a BCF a day of natural gas would be around 20 million tons for every BCF a day of power that you generate. But when that natural gas is used to replace coal, the emission, which would have a carbon footprint of 50 million tons, every BCF a day of natural gas we put in the world to replace coal would have a Scope 4 carbon footprint of negative 30 million tons. So we are all about bringing a more holistic perspective to how we think about energy. And that comes back to our big theme here. It's not just about what we do within our borders. It's what we can do to lower emissions outside of our borders. The world needs to start thinking more about this holistically. So we welcome the conversations about having a broader perspective when it comes to looking at Scope 4 emissions.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot of opportunities to engage in this in the future as well. Toby, it's really great to see you here in Dubai, and wish you a fruitful COP, and keep pushing the action agenda. We're looking forward to continue the conversation.
Thanks, Landon.